The first time Maria Rodriguez understood the true meaning of survival was not on a battlefield, but in the unforgiving landscape of her childhood. Eagle Pass, Texas, a border town where dreams collided with harsh realities, and survival was less a choice and more a daily negotiation. Her father, Miguel Rodriguez, a Vietnam veteran with hands that trembled from memories too heavy to bear, had been her first and most brutal instructor in the art of resilience. The Rodriguez household was a museum of controlled chaos. Walls, adorned with military memorabilia, told silent stories of sacrifice, faded photographs of soldiers, medals encased in glass, and military patches that seemed to whisper tales of courage and loss. Young Maria learned early that survival was not about heroics, but about calculated precision, about reading the smallest details that could mean the difference between life and death. Her mother, Elena, had been a different kind of warrior, a high school history teacher with a PhD in international relations. She filled Maria's mind with stories of global conflicts, political intrigue, and the complex tapestry of human struggle. While her father taught her how to survive physically, her mother armed her with intellectual weapons, critical thinking, strategic analysis, and an uncanny ability to understand the psychology of conflict. Summer days in Eagle Pass were brutal. Temperature would climb past 100 degrees, turning the landscape into a shimmering canvas of heat and dust. While other children sought refuge in air-conditioned rooms or swimming pools, Maria trained. Her father would set up elaborate obstacle courses in their backyard, makeshift training ground that blended military precision with raw survival instincts. "Watch your periphery," Miguel would say, his voice a low, gravelly whisper that carried the weight of multiple combat tours. "Your eyes can lie. Your instincts never do." These weren't just training sessions. They were life lessons disguised as physical challenges. Maria learned to move silently through terrain, to assess threats before they became visible, to understand that combat was 90% mental and 10% physical. Her father's training went beyond traditional military instruction. It was about becoming a living, breathing survival mechanism. By the time she was 14, Maria could field strip a rifle blindfolded, create improvised medical kits from everyday items, and navigate using nothing more than the stars and her own internal compass. Her classmates saw a quiet, intense girl who seemed out of place in their small border town. What they didn't see was the warrior being meticulously crafted beneath the surface. Her mother's influence added depth to her physical training. Elena Rodriguez didn't just teach history, she dissected it. Dinner table conversations were intense debates about geopolitical strategies, the psychology of conflict, and the intricate dance of international relations. Maria learned that every conflict had a story, every war had multiple perspectives, and true intelligence was about understanding the unseen currents beneath the surface. "Information is the most powerful weapon," Elena would often say. "A well-placed word can be more destructive than any bomb, more transformative than any military campaign." The border region itself was a constant teacher. Eagle Pass sat on the edge of two worlds, the United States and Mexico, a liminal space where cultures, languages, and survival strategies intersected. Maria grew up understanding border dynamics in a way most people could never comprehend. She saw the human stories behind the political rhetoric, understood the complex motivations that drove people to risk everything for a chance at survival. Her multilingual abilities became another weapon in her arsenal. Spanish, English, and later Arabic and Dari languages were not just communication tools, but strategic assets. She could blend, observe, understand nuanced conversations that others would miss. Her linguistic skills would later become crucial in her military intelligence work, allowing her to navigate complex cultural terrains with remarkable ease. High school was a formality for Maria. While her peers worried about college applications and social dynamics, She was already mapping out her future with military precision. Her academic record was impeccable, top of her class. Multiple advanced placement courses, leadership positions in academic clubs. But it was her extracurricular activities that truly set her apart. Martial arts, wilderness survival courses, advanced first aid training. Maria approached each discipline with the same intense focus. She wasn't collecting achievements. She was building a comprehensive survival toolkit. Her instructors, initially skeptical of the quiet girl from a border town, soon recognized her as something extraordinary. The military recruitment process was almost a formality. Maria didn't just pass their tests. She redefined their expectations. Psychological evaluations, physical fitness assessments, tactical reasoning exams. She approached each challenge not as a test to be passed, but as an opportunity to demonstrate her capabilities. When she finally enlisted, it wasn't about patriotism in the traditional sense. For Maria, service was an extension of her lifelong training, a chance to apply everything she had learned, to serve a purpose larger than herself, to transform her skills into meaningful action. Little did she know that all those years of preparation, the desert training with her father, the intellectual warfare learned from her mother, the border town survival instincts, were preparing her for a moment that would become legendary. A moment where everything would be stripped away, leaving only her true self. A warrior forged in the crucible of survival. The desert wind continued to whisper, carrying with it the promise of a confrontation that would test everything Maria Rodriguez had ever learned. Her breath remained steady, her mind clear. Weapons or no weapons, she was ready. The United States Military Academy at West Point was not just an institution for Maria Rodriguez, it was a proving ground, a crucible where her lifetime of preparation would be tested and refined. From the moment she arrived on campus, she stood out, not through loud proclamations or aggressive posturing, but through a quiet, almost electric intensity that made even her most seasoned instructors take notice. Her first year was a study in controlled excellence. While other cadets struggled with the intense physical and mental demands, Maria moved through the challenges like water around stone, fluid, adaptive, seemingly effortless. But those who watched closely understood that her performance was anything but effortless. It was the result of years of meticulous preparation, of a childhood spent training for precisely this moment. Physical training was where Maria first truly distinguished herself. The grueling obstacle courses, designed to break even the most physically fit candidates, became her playground. Her movements were a perfect blend of her father's military training and her own innate understanding of human mechanics. She didn't just complete the challenges. She reimagined them, finding efficient pathways that left her instructors both impressed and slightly unnerved. Her academic performance was equally remarkable. International relations and strategic studies became more than just subjects. They were extensions of the conversations she'd shared with her mother around the dinner table for years. Where other students memorized facts, Maria synthesized information, seeing connections that others missed. Her papers weren't just assignments. They were strategic analyses that often read like intelligence briefings. Language became another weapon in her arsenal. While most cadets struggled with a single foreign language, Maria quickly became proficient in Arabic, Farsi, and Urdu. Her linguistic skills weren't just about translation. They were about cultural understanding, about hearing the unspoken narratives behind words. Military intelligence recruiters began taking notice early in her academic career. But Maria was more than just her achievements. She carried with her the stories of her border town, of her father's war experiences, of her mother's intellectual rigor. She understood that true intelligence was about more than academic excellence or physical prowess. It was about adaptability, about understanding the human element in every conflict. Her fellow cadets were a mixed tapestry of backgrounds and motivations. Some came from military families. Others were first-generation college students. Some were seeking adventure, others a path to citizenship. Maria moved among them like a careful observer, learning, adapting, building connections that would serve her in her future missions. Leadership training revealed another layer of Maria's exceptional nature. She didn't lead through intimidation or traditional hierarchical methods. Her leadership was surgical, understanding each team member's strengths, compensating for their weaknesses, creating a unit that was more than the sum of its parts. Instructors noted her ability to read people, to understand motivations and potential breaking points before they became critical. The psychological evaluations that were part of her advanced training were particularly revealing. Where most candidates showed signs of stress or potential breakdown, Maria remained a study in controlled emotion. Her psych profiles read like a blueprint of perfect operational readiness, high stress tolerance, exceptional situational awareness, and an almost preternatural ability to remain calm under pressure. Her selection for specialized intelligence operations was not a surprise to those who had watched her progress. It was the culmination of everything she had been preparing for her entire life. The military saw in her something beyond a typical operative. They saw a strategic asset, a human weapon forged by unique experiences and unparalleled training. Advanced training pushed her to limits most would consider impossible. Survival courses in the most inhospitable environments, Arctic tundras, desert landscapes, dense jungle terrains, became her proving grounds. She didn't just survive. She demonstrated an ability to not just adapt, but to thrive in conditions that would break most operatives. Her multilingual skills and cultural understanding made her invaluable in operations that required more than just physical intervention. Maria understood that true intelligence work was about communication, about understanding the complex human dynamics that drove conflict. She could navigate cultural nuances that traditional operatives might miss entirely. And memories of her father's war, the stories her mother had shared, the border town experiences, they all converged in her approach to military service. This wasn't about glorifying conflict or simple patriotism. For Maria, it was about understanding the complex human stories behind geopolitical tensions, about finding solutions that went beyond traditional military interventions. As she completed her advanced training, Maria Rodriguez was no longer just a soldier. She was a living weapon, a strategic asset that represented the most advanced form of military intelligence. Her commanders knew she was different, not just in her skills, but in her entire approach to operational strategy. Little did she know that all of this preparation, the border town survival instincts, the West Point training, the advanced intelligence operations, was preparing her for a moment that would define not just her career, but potentially change the understanding of human potential in combat situations. The mission that was coming would test everything she had ever learned. And Maria Rodriguez was ready, more than ready. She was a perfect storm of training, instinct, and an unbreakable spirit that had been forged long before she ever stepped onto a battlefield. The classified briefing room was a temple of controlled tension. Stark white walls, reinforced with advanced soundproofing, seemed to absorb every whispered word, every calculated breath. Maria Rodriguez sat near the back, her posture relaxed, yet coiled a predator at rest, but never truly still. Around her, the most elite intelligence operatives in the United States military gathered, each carrying the weight of a mission that could reshape geopolitical landscapes. Intelligence reports had been trickling in for months, fragmented, cryptic, like pieces of a complex puzzle that refused to form a complete picture. A new insurgent group had emerged in the most volatile region of the Middle East, one that defied traditional classification. They weren't just another terrorist organization. They were something far more dangerous, a hybrid network with connections that spread like invisible roots through multiple governments, intelligence agencies, and criminal networks. The primary target was known only by a code name, the Architect. Intelligence suggested this was more than just a military leader. This was a strategic mastermind who had been orchestrating a series of destabilizing events across multiple countries. Banks had collapsed, governments had teetered on the brink of chaos, and strategic infrastructure had been systematically compromised, all without a single traditional military engagement. Maria's role in the mission was both precise and enigmatic. She wasn't just a field operative. She was to be the strategic linchpin, a human algorithm capable of adapting to the most unpredictable scenarios. Her multilingual skills, her deep understanding of cultural nuances, and her exceptional analytical capabilities made her the perfect operative for a mission that existed in the gray areas between traditional warfare and complex geopolitical chess. The mission briefing was a masterpiece of strategic complexity. Multiple contingency plans layered upon each other, each scenario more intricate than the last. Where traditional military operations might have a primary and secondary objective, this mission had a web of potential outcomes, each carefully calculated to minimize collateral damage while maximizing strategic impact. Her team was not a traditional military unit. They were a carefully curated group of specialists, each chosen for a specific skill set that complemented the others. A former NS, a cryptography expert. A linguist who had spent decades living in the region. A communications specialist who could hack and manipulate digital networks with surgical precision. And at the center of it all, Maria Rodriguez. Preparation was brutal and comprehensive. Weeks of simulated scenarios, psychological evaluations, and intense physical training pushed the team to their absolute limits. They weren't just preparing for a mission. They were becoming a single, unified organism capable of adapting to the most unpredictable circumstances. Maria's preparation went beyond the standard protocol. She spent hours studying intercepted communications, analyzing behavioral patterns, creating psychological profiles that went beyond traditional intelligence gathering. Where others saw data, she saw human stories, motivations, fears, potential breaking points. The technology they would carry was beyond cutting edge. Communication devices that could operate in complete radio silence. Tactical gear that could adapt to multiple environmental conditions. Miniature drones that could be deployed with a thought. Each piece of equipment was an extension of their strategic capabilities, designed to give them an edge in a mission where traditional advantages meant nothing. Her father's lessons from childhood came flooding back during these preparation weeks. Information is your primary weapon, Miguel Rodriguez would always say. Everything else is just a tool. Maria understood this better than anyone. She wasn't just preparing to enter a conflict zone. She was preparing to navigate a complex human landscape where every interaction could be a potential turning point. The psychological evaluations were particularly intense. Where most operatives showed signs of stress or potential breakdown, Maria remained a study in controlled focus. Her ability to maintain emotional equilibrium while processing vast amounts of complex information set her apart. Psychologists who evaluated her noted something almost supernatural in her ability to remain calm and strategic under extreme pressure. Cultural preparation was as crucial as physical training. Maria spent hours with regional experts, understanding not just the language, but the subtle cultural nuances that could mean the difference between successful infiltration and immediate detection. She wasn't just learning about a region. She was becoming a chameleon capable of moving through multiple cultural landscapes with invisible precision. The night before the mission, a strange calm descended upon her, while her teammates showed signs of pre-mission anxiety, subtle tremors, increased heart rates, heightened stress responses. Maria was a study in tranquility. She wasn't fearless. She was something more dangerous, completely and utterly prepared. Her final communication with her parents was characteristic of their relationship. No dramatic goodbyes, no overly emotional declarations. Just a simple message that carried volumes of unspoken understanding. Her mother sent a coded message referencing a historical strategic maneuver. Her father, a photograph of an eagle, their long-standing symbol of resilience and strategic vision. As the mission's launch approached, Maria Rodriguez represented something more than just a military operative. She was the culmination of years of training, of a lifetime of preparation, of a unique blend of intellectual rigor and physical excellence. The mission ahead was more than just a military operation. It was a test of human potential, of the extraordinary capabilities that emerge when training, instinct, and strategic thinking converge. The desert waited, the mission beckoned, and Maria Rodriguez was ready more than ready. She was a perfect storm of preparation, ready to transform into whatever the mission required. Time fractures differently in moments of extreme crisis. Milliseconds stretch into eternity, sound becomes a distant echo, and the human mind enters a state of hyper-awareness that defies conventional understanding. For Maria Rodriguez, the ambush was not just an attack, it was a violent recalibration of everything she had ever known about survival. The desert landscape, moments before a study in silent anticipation, erupted into chaos with surgical precision. It wasn't a random assault. This was a meticulously planned attack that suggested inside knowledge, a level of strategic planning that went far beyond typical insurgent tactics. The first indication came not with sound, but with a subtle shift in the air, a microsecond of stillness that veteran operatives recognize as the breath before catastrophe. Their tactical formation, perfected through countless hours of training, dissolved in seconds. Maria's Team 6 of the most elite operatives ever assembled was systematically targeted with a level of precision that suggested more than just battlefield intelligence. Each member was neutralized with calculated efficiency, their positions compromised by someone who knew exactly where they would be, how they would move. The communications specialist went first, a targeted pulse that disabled their advanced communication systems, cutting them off from external support. Then the perimeter guards neutralized by what seemed like simultaneous, impossible shots that defied conventional ballistic understanding. Maria watched with a detached clarity, her training kicking in even as the world around her transformed into a landscape of violence. Her mind processed what was happening faster than human perception typically allows. This was not a typical ambush. The attack pattern, the precision, the way her team was systematically isolated, this was something else entirely. Someone had not just anticipated their mission, they had prepared for it with a level of strategic planning that bordered on prescience. The lead insurgent was a mountain of a man easily 6'5", built like a human weapon, with eyes that suggested he had long ago transcended fear. When he approached Maria, it was with the confidence of a predator who knew the hunt was already over. In one fluid motion, he knocked her primary weapon away, a move designed not just to disarm, but to psychologically devastate. What he didn't understand was the depth of Maria Rodriguez's preparation. Every moment of her life, from her father's border town training to her advanced military intelligence operations, had been a preparation for exactly this type of scenario. Disarmed was not the same as defeated, and Maria was about to demonstrate the profound difference. The tactical environment became a three-dimensional chessboard. Burning vehicles created islands of cover. Desert dust transformed the landscape into a shifting, unpredictable terrain. Wounded teammates became strategic points of both vulnerability and potential tactical advantage. Maria's mind was already 3 moves ahead, processing potential escape routes, potential weapons, potential vulnerabilities in the insurgent team's approach. Her multilingual skills provided an unexpected advantage. Listening to the insurgents' communications, she caught nuanced details that went beyond their spoken words. Their confidence, their tactical positioning in each conversation revealed more about their strategy than they realized. Maria was gathering intelligence, even in the moment of apparent defeat. The weapon that was taken from her was more than just a physical tool. It was a carefully customized piece of equipment that represented years of technological development. But Maria Rodriguez had never relied on a single tool. Her entire body was a weapon, her mind the most sophisticated piece of tactical equipment on the battlefield. Her father's lessons echoed in her mind. A weapon is just a tool. Your mind, your spirit, that's your true arsenal. The lessons from their backyard training in Eagle Pass, the survival techniques honed over years, the psychological warfare strategies discussed around their dinner table, they all converged in this moment. The lead insurgent made a critical mistake. In his confidence, in his belief that disarming her meant defeating her, he underestimated the most dangerous element of Maria Rodriguez, her ability to transform any environment into her tactical advantage. Where he saw a defeated operative, she saw a battlefield of infinite possibilities. Her first move was psychological, a moment of apparent submission that was anything but. Her body language suggested defeat, but her eyes, sharp, calculating, predatory, told a different story. The insurgents would later struggle to explain how everything changed in an instant. The environment became her weapon. Burning vehicle components, fragments of tactical gear, the very dust of the desert, Maria Rodriguez was about to demonstrate that true combat is about adaptation, about seeing potential where others see only destruction. Her mind was already calculating the lead insurgent's positioning, the potential weapons within reach, the psychological state of the remaining team, the environmental factors. Each element became a potential tool, a potential path to survival and potential counterattack. The moment was approaching. The 68 seconds that would become legendary were about to begin. Maria Rodriguez was no longer just an operative. She was about to become a living testament to human potential, to the extraordinary capabilities that emerge when training, instinct, and an unbreakable spirit converge. The desert held its breath. The insurgents believed the battle was already won. Maria Rodriguez knew the truth. The real battle was just beginning. The first millisecond was about calculation. Not fear, not desperation, pure, clinical assessment. Maria Rodriguez's mind operated at a frequency beyond human comprehension, processing information faster than the most advanced quantum computers. The burning desert landscape, the disabled communication systems, the fallen teammates, each element became a potential weapon, a strategic resource. Her initial movement was deceptive. To the insurgent commandos, it appeared like a moment of submission. A slight lowering of her shoulders, a barely perceptible shift in posture that suggested defeat. But for those who understood true combat, those who could read the micro-expressions of a warrior, something else was brewing. Lead Commando, a massive figure whose very presence seemed to distort the air around him, made his fatal mistake. Confidence became his weakness. He believed the confrontation was over, that disarming her was equivalent to defeating her. In combat, such assumptions are a death sentence. Maria's first strike was about psychology, not physical force. A subtle movement that redirected the lead commando's attention, creating a microscopic window of opportunity. Her hands, calloused from years of military training, moved with a fluidity that defied human perception. Where most would see a defensive posture, she created an offensive vector. The burning vehicle to her left became her first tactical resource. A fragment of shattered metal, still radiating heat from the explosion, transformed into a precision cutting implement. In a movement too fast for human eyes to fully comprehend, she used the metal shard to disable the Commando's primary communication device, a move that would prevent immediate, coordinated response. Her father's lessons echoed in that moment. Combat is 10% physical, 90% mental, Miguel Rodriguez had always said. Maria embodied that principle. Each movement was a calculated decision, each action a complex algorithm of survival and strategic. Neutralization. The second commando approached from her right side, believing her momentary stillness indicated vulnerability. Another fatal miscalculation. Maria's peripheral awareness was not just acute, it was supernatural. Her body moved before conscious thought could process the threat, a dance of survival choreographed by years of training. A displaced piece of tactical gear became her next weapon. She used the commando's own momentum against him, a technique that blended martial arts principles with military close quarters combat training. The movement was so precise, so efficient, that it appeared almost balletic, a violent poetry of survival. Time became fluid. 68 seconds is an eternity in combat, a mere breath in traditional understanding. Maria Rodriguez existed in a state of hyper-awareness where each microsecond contained multiple lifetimes of decision-making. The third commando represented a more sophisticated threat. His approach was calculated, his movements suggesting advanced training. But advanced training meets its match when confronted with true adaptive intelligence. Maria didn't just counter his attack, she anticipated it, transformed the entire tactical environment into a weapon. A burning piece of communication equipment became a temporary diversion. The heat, the unexpected trajectory, the psychological impact, each element carefully manipulated. The commando's momentary disorientation was all she needed. Her strike was not about brute force, but about surgical precision. Her multilingual skills provided an unexpected advantage. Understanding the subtle communication patterns, the tactical language of her attackers, she could predict movements before they happened. Each word, each tactical command became a roadmap of their potential actions. The fourth commando represented the final challenge. By this point, the others had been systematically neutralized, not killed, but rendered completely non-functional. Maria's approach wasn't about maximum violence, but about maximum efficiency. Each movement conserved energy. Each action had multiple potential outcomes. The desert itself became her ally. Dust, heat, the remnants of burning equipment. Maria Rodriguez transformed the environment into a complex tactical resource. Where others saw destruction, she saw opportunity. Her final movements were a testament to human potential. The four commandos who moments ago believed they had the upper hand now lay disabled, their tactical capabilities completely neutralized. Not through overwhelming force, but through a level of strategic thinking that transcended traditional combat. Understanding. Forensic analysis would later struggle to explain exactly what happened. Military investigators, intelligence experts, combat specialists, none could fully comprehend the level of tactical brilliance displayed in those 68 seconds. The aftermath was almost anticlimactic. Maria Rodriguez stood amid the burning landscape, her tactical gear slightly singed, her breathing steady not from adrenaline, but from a state of complete control. She wasn't breathing heavily. She wasn't celebrating. She was processing, analyzing, preparing for the next potential threat. Her teammates, those who had survived the initial ambush, would later describe the moment as something beyond human capability. It was like watching a human algorithm, one would say during debriefing. She didn't just survive. She redefined what survival means. The 68 seconds would become legendary not just as a combat story, but as a testament to human potential. Maria Rodriguez had done more than survive an ambush. She had demonstrated that true warfare is about adaptability, about seeing potential where others see only limitation. The desert wind carried away the dust, the remnants of the confrontation. But the legend was just beginning. The debriefing room was unlike any standard military interrogation space. Located deep within a secure facility that didn't officially exist, it was a testament to the classified nature of Maria Rodriguez's mission. Stark white walls absorbed sound with an almost living quality, creating an environment where every word carried weight, every silence spoke volumes. A team of the most senior intelligence experts from multiple agencies sat arranged like a tribunal. Military intelligence, CIA operatives, NSA specialists, and international strategic advisors each represented a different perspective, a different approach to understanding the impossible event that had just occurred. Maria Rodriguez sat at the center, her posture relaxed yet electric, a study in controlled intensity. The initial report was clinical, almost painfully detailed. Each movement during the 68-second encounter was analyzed with microscopic precision. Digital reconstructions, satellite imagery, recovered communication fragments. Every piece of evidence was meticulously examined. What emerged was more than just a mission report. It was a comprehensive study of human potential under extreme circumstances. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the lead forensic psychologist specializing in combat behavior, led the initial analysis. Her reputation for clinical detachment was legendary, her ability to dissect human performance unparalleled. "What we're looking at," she began, her voice cutting through the tension, "is not just a successful mission. This is a fundamental redefinition of human operational capabilities." The video evidence was both fascinating and deeply troubling. Multiple angles, captured by various tactical devices, showed Maria's response in excruciating detail. Frame-by-frame analysis revealed something that defied conventional understanding. Her movements weren't just fast, they were predictive. Each action seemed to anticipate threats before they fully materialized. Military intelligence experts struggled to categorize her performance. The lead analyst, a veteran of multiple conflict zones, found himself at a loss for words. "It's not just about physical capability," he explained, his voice a mixture of professional analysis and barely concealed awe. She transformed the entire tactical environment into a weapon. Every element, dust, heat, destroyed equipment became a strategic resource. The psychological evaluation was perhaps the most fascinating component. Where most operatives would show elevated stress markers, signs of post-traumatic response, Maria Rodriguez displayed something entirely different. Her psychological profile suggested not just resilience, but a state of hyper-awareness that bordered on the supernatural. Recovered communication intercepts added another layer of complexity to the investigation. The insurgent group's internal communications revealed a level of strategic planning that went far beyond typical terrorist operations. They had not just planned an ambush, they had meticulously prepared for what they believed would be a definitive elimination of a high-value target. Instead, they had encountered something entirely unexpected. The forensic reconstruction was a marvel of technological analysis. Digital models, created using the most advanced simulation technologies, attempted to replicate Maria's movements. Hundreds of iterations failed. Computer algorithms designed to predict human movement couldn't comprehend the level of adaptive intelligence she had demonstrated. Dr. Marcus Chun, a leading expert in human performance and tactical psychology, presented a groundbreaking hypothesis. "We're looking at a potential evolutionary leap in human operational capabilities," he argued, his presentation filled with complex neurological data and performance metrics. Her ability to process information, to adapt in real time, suggests capabilities that go beyond traditional human limitations. The mission's larger strategic implications were equally profound. The target, the mysterious architect they had been pursuing, remained unidentified. But the level of tactical intelligence Maria had gathered, even in those brief 68 seconds, provided more insight than months of traditional intelligence gathering. Her multilingual skills became another point of intense study. Recovered communication. Fragments suggested she had gathered critical intelligence through linguistic nuance understanding, not just words, but the psychological subtext of intercepted communications. The most senior military officials remained largely silent during much of the debriefing. Their silence was more telling than any verbal analysis. These were individuals who had seen decades of combat, who had witnessed extraordinary performances. Yet, Maria Rodriguez represented something entirely new. Personal interviews revealed another fascinating dimension. Maria spoke about the mission with the same clinical detachment she had demonstrated during the encounter. No bravado, no emotional recounting, just a precise, almost mathematical description of events. Her ability to recall minute details, to analyze her own performance with surgical precision, was itself extraordinary. Recommendations began to take shape. Some suggested she be moved into an advanced training program to potentially develop a new approach to operational readiness. Others argued for more intensive study of her psychological and physiological responses. The most radical proposal came from an unexpected source. Dr. Vasquez suggested creating an entirely new operational framework based on Maria's performance, approach to human tactical capabilities that went beyond traditional military training. As the debriefing concluded, one thing became crystal clear. Maria Rodriguez was not just a successful operative. She represented a potential paradigm shift in understanding human potential under extreme circumstances. The legend was just beginning, and the world of military intelligence would never be the same. The transition from active military service was never going to be conventional for Maria Rodriguez. Traditional career paths seemed impossibly narrow, almost suffocating compared to the extraordinary experiences that had defined her military career. Her reputation preceded her, a living legend who had redefined the boundaries of human operational capabilities. The first few months after her official discharge were a period of careful recalibration. A national security ecosystem watched her every move, understanding that someone with her capabilities was far too valuable to simply fade into civilian life. Offers poured in from private military contractors, think tanks, top-tier universities, government agencies, each sensing an opportunity to harness her unique set of skills. Maria chose a path that surprised everyone. Instead of becoming a high-profile consultant or entering the lucrative world of private security, she began developing a comprehensive training program that went far beyond traditional military or intelligence preparation. Her vision was revolutionary: to create a holistic approach to human potential that integrated psychological resilience, tactical thinking, and adaptive intelligence. The Adaptive Performance Institute became her primary platform. Located in a nondescript facility outside Washington, D.C., it was more than just a training center. It was a laboratory of human potential, a place where the boundaries between psychology, neuroscience, and tactical training dissolved. Her training programs attracted a diverse range of participants: military personnel, law enforcement officers, emergency responders, and even corporate leaders saw something transformative in her approach. Maria didn't just teach skills, she taught a fundamental way of perceiving and responding to complex environments. The curriculum she developed was unlike anything in existing training programs. Traditional military training focused on physical capabilities and standard operational procedures. Maria's approach was quantum in its complexity. She broke down human performance into its most fundamental components: cognitive processing, emotional regulation, environmental adaptation, and strategic thinking. Neurologists and performance psychologists became fascinated by her methodology. Her training modules incorporated cutting-edge research in neuroplasticity, stress response, and cognitive flexibility. Participants weren't just learning skills, they were fundamentally rewiring their approach to challenge and uncertainty. One of her most groundbreaking programs focused on what she called environmental intelligence. Rather than teaching fixed responses, she trained individuals to see every environment as a dynamic, adaptable resource. Participants learned to transform limitations into opportunities, to read psychological and physical landscapes with unprecedented depth. Her personal story became a critical component of the training, though not in the way most would expect. Maria didn't glorify her military experiences. Instead, she used them as case studies in adaptive thinking and understanding that true intelligence is about continuous learning and psychological flexibility. The national security community watched her work with a mixture of fascination and careful scrutiny. Some saw her as a potential threat, an uncontrolled variable with unprecedented capabilities. Others recognized her as a critical asset, someone who could fundamentally transform how human potential was understood and developed. International agencies began sending representatives to study her training methodologies. Military academies from multiple countries requested detailed briefings. Corporate leadership programs saw her approach as a revolutionary way of developing adaptive leadership skills. Her mother Elena's influence was evident in every aspect of her work. The intellectual rigor, the ability to see complex systems as interconnected narratives, these were lessons learned around Rodriguez's family dinner table. Her father's survival lessons merged with her mother's strategic thinking to create something entirely unique. The Adaptive Performance Institute developed partnerships with leading research universities. Collaborative studies explored the scientific foundations of her training methodologies. Neuroscientists, psychologists, and performance experts worked to understand the underlying principles that made her approach so transformative. Maria's personal life remained intensely private. She wasn't interested in public recognition or media attention. Her work spoke for itself. Participants in her programs underwent profound transformations, not just in their professional capabilities, but in their fundamental understanding of human potential. One of her most significant contributions was a training module focused on psychological resilience. Drawing from her own experiences, she developed techniques that went beyond traditional stress management. Participants learned to transform psychological pressure into a source of clarity and strategic thinking. Government agencies began incorporating elements of her training into their most advanced preparation programs. The CIA, NSA, and specialized military units saw her approach as a critical evolution in human operational capabilities. Her methodologies weren't just about surviving extreme circumstances, they were about thriving in complexity. International conflict resolution became another unexpected area of her influence. Her understanding of cultural intelligence, her ability to see beyond surface-level conflicts, made her a unique voice in diplomatic and strategic circles. She wasn't just training individuals, she was developing a new approach to understanding human interaction. The most powerful aspect of her work was its fundamental philosophy. Maria Rodriguez didn't see human potential as a fixed characteristic. She saw it as a dynamic, continuously evolving system. Her training was about opening possibilities, about helping individuals recognize their own adaptive capabilities. As the years passed, her reputation grew. But it wasn't the reputation of a military hero or a tactical expert. She became known as a pioneer in human potential, someone who had fundamentally challenged existing understanding of human capabilities. The 68 seconds that had defined her military career had transformed into a lifetime of pushing the boundaries of human understanding. Maria Rodriguez was no longer just a legend of a single mission. She had become a catalyst for a new way of thinking about human potential. The battlefield had expanded, and she was still very much at the center of the most important mission of her life. 20 years after those legendary 68 seconds, Maria Rodriguez had become more than a person. She was a living concept, a paradigm that challenged fundamental understanding of human potential. Her influence stretched far beyond the military and intelligence communities, touching fields as diverse as education, psychology, leadership development, and human performance. The global landscape had transformed dramatically. Technological advancements, geopolitical shifts, and increasingly complex global challenges demanded a new approach to human capabilities. And at the center of this transformation stood Maria Rodriguez, not as a traditional leader, but as a catalyst of human understanding. Her work at the Adaptive Performance Institute had evolved into a global movement. What had begun as a specialized training program had become a comprehensive approach to human development that transcended traditional boundaries. Universities around the world now offered programs based on her methodologies, integrating her approach to adaptive intelligence into core curriculum designs. International peace negotiation teams sought her insights. Where traditional diplomatic approaches faltered, Maria's understanding of human psychology and adaptive thinking offered breakthrough perspectives. She didn't just teach conflict resolution, she revealed the underlying psychological mechanisms that drive human interaction. The scientific community had spent decades studying her extraordinary 68-second encounter. Neurological studies, psychological analyses, and performance research continued to mine the depths of her unique capabilities. What had once seemed impossible was now becoming a field of serious academic and practical study. Her parents' influence remained profoundly visible in her work. The intellectual rigor from her mother Alina, combined with the survival instincts learned from her father, Miguel, had created a unique philosophical approach to human potential. She often spoke about how true intelligence was about adaptation, about seeing potential where others saw only limitations. Global leadership programs incorporated her training methodologies. Corporate executives, political leaders, and social innovators sought to understand the principles of adaptive thinking she had pioneered. Her approach wasn't about creating soldiers or operatives. It was about developing human beings capable of navigating increasingly complex global challenges. The technology sector became particularly interested in her work. As artificial intelligence and human-machine interfaces became more sophisticated, Maria's insights into human adaptability provided crucial frameworks for understanding how humans could work alongside advanced technologies. Educational systems around the world began reimagining learning through her lens. Traditional educational models focused on knowledge retention were gradually replaced by approaches that emphasized adaptive thinking, psychological resilience, and the ability to learn continuously. Her original 68-second encounter had become more than a military legend. It was now a case study in human potential, analyzed in academic papers, discussed in leadership seminars, and used as a metaphorical representation of human adaptability. The Adaptive Performance Institute had grown into a global network. Research centers, training facilities, and educational programs spanning multiple continents now carried forward her philosophical approach to human development. It was no longer just an institute, it was a global movement. International conflict resolution teams found her methodologies particularly transformative. By understanding the psychological underpinnings of conflict, by teaching adaptive communication and empathy, her approach offered new pathways to resolving seemingly intractable global tensions. Maria herself remained characteristically humble. She never sought personal recognition, never marketed herself as a hero or a guru. Her work spoke for itself. The thousands of individuals whose lives had been transformed by her training were her true legacy. Technological advancements began to catch up with her philosophical approach. Neurotechnology, advanced psychological assessment tools, and adaptive learning systems all bore the subtle imprint of her groundbreaking work. Scientists and researchers continued to explore the boundaries of human potential she had first revealed. Her original military mission, the 68 seconds that had defined her early career, became a metaphorical touchstone. It represented something far more profound than a tactical encounter. It was a moment that revealed the extraordinary adaptive capabilities of the human mind under extreme circumstances. Global leadership conferences invariably featured her work, not as a keynote speaker in the traditional sense, but as a philosophical framework that challenged existing understanding of human potential. Political leaders, corporate executives, and social innovators sought to understand the principles that had guided her extraordinary journey. The next generation of leaders was being trained not just with skills, but with a fundamental understanding of adaptive intelligence. Maria's approach had transformed from a training methodology to a comprehensive philosophy of human potential. Her personal life remained intensely private. She wasn't interested in public accolades or media attention. The work was what mattered, the continuous exploration of human capabilities, the ongoing journey of understanding how humans could adapt, grow, and transform. The Adaptive Performance Institute had become a global center of excellence. Research, facilities, training programs, and educational initiatives around the world now carried forward her vision. It was no longer just about individual performance. It was about understanding the collective potential of human beings. International research collaborations continued to explore the scientific foundations of her approach. Neurologists, psychologists, performance experts, and technological innovators worked together to understand the deeper principles of human adaptability. As global challenges became increasingly complex, Maria Rodriguez's approach became more relevant than ever. Climate change, technological disruption, geopolitical tensions. These challenges demanded a new kind of human capability. Her work provided a framework for understanding how humans could not just survive, but thrive in unprecedented complexity. The 68 seconds that had defined her early career had transformed into a lifetime of pushing the boundaries of human understanding. Maria Rodriguez was no longer just a legend of a single mission. She had become a catalyst for a fundamental reimagining of human potential. The battlefield had expanded far beyond physical conflict, and she was still very much at the center of the most important mission of her life, helping humanity understand its true capabilities.